Ryan and Lauren have built a portfolio of $4.5 million across 5 properties, all by the age of 30. And in this particular episode on the Property Nerds, we're going to dive into their story of working together with us over the last 5 years, building this portfolio, the learnings, the mistakes, the successes, and just going into their mindset as a couple who've built wealth so young. So jump into this episode where we go deep into another investor story with 5 properties purchased by age 30 across 3 different states, scaling a portfolio the right way. Check it out.
Nerd Alert! Property Nerds, the home for data-driven property investors, where we uncover Australia's hot and cold markets, latest headlines and trends.
Ryan and Lauren, welcome all the way from Darwin to Sydney. Thanks so much for coming in.
No, thanks for having us here. We are really excited.
Awesome. Well, guys, it's been a special journey together, being, clients of InvestorKit for many, many years, good friends. We've been caught up in Darwin as well. Came out your way to have a good catch up as well, which was awesome. Yeah. So returning the favor of coming out to Sydney. But I wanted to talk about the journey and taking it right back. So Ryan, can you remember the moment where you and Lauren both decided, let's get into property investing, and what triggered that interest for you two? Ryan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it was probably something for me that I'd started maybe back in 2017, 2018 when I started doing my own research, looking how I could probably set myself up for my financial future. And at the time, I'd sort of had a little bit of a look into stocks and had a bit of a look into property, and the fact that we could sort of leverage our position within property to really create some long-term financial wealth. I think that was one of the first levers for me that really said, okay, that's what I want to do. I want to really get into property investing.
Lauren, you also had a thought around property investing on your own as well, right? But I mean, what was the trigger for you? And you're thinking, yeah, this makes sense to me as well.
So probably about similar time, maybe 2017. I was having a conversation with my dad and my brother, and we had a bit of savings behind us, and we're like, okay, what are we going to do with this? Probably letting it sit in the bank's not going to be the best thing for us long term. So we're kind of looking at what our options were there. So my brother and I actually started together before Ryan and I got together, and we started from there and just thought that was a good start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, both of you are in the medical industry, physios in Darwin. Firstly, did that did the physios both of it together happen first, or did was it the relationship, did it have anything to do with both being in the same industry and getting together or meeting together from that? Or was it separate and that just happened to be the case? It's not that common to have both be physios in a relationship, right?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a backstory there. But for time purposes, we went to uni together and then got together a little bit later down the track. So we're already physios first independently, and then property investors independently. And now we're physios together. We work at the same clinic.
How good.
Property investors together. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like family obviously played a key role in the journey as well, in conversations and discussing things with them and having the interest. Me and you got a bit of a story, mate, with family.
That's not right, guys. That's not right.
So, we first connected, obviously, online, talking, chatting, and you were in Melbourne at the time.
Yeah.
I came out to Melbourne and caught up with you, and we had a coffee. And then, look, I can't remember if it was like a full-on just came out of nowhere and the parents just came through, or if you'd warned me about it. But your parents came through. It was like a 3-on-1 coffee. And it was like an interview, like they were proper interviewing me.
Interrogation.
Mate, what was the chats that you guys were having afterwards? I'm intrigued.
I think prior to us having the face-to-face, we'd already been communicating online, and I was sort of thinking to myself, Arjun's is a pretty smart guy, pretty genuine. I think it's the guy that I want to try and help with my property investment journey. And then I'd met with a few other companies at the time and a few other people, and I just wasn't entirely sure. And I'd sometimes can become a little bit biased with what I want. So I was like, I'll ask my parents to come along and see what they think of you at the time, just to make sure there's nothing suspicious going on, or he's not trying to take advantage of me or anything like that. I think if anything, I was taking advantage of you back then. But, and they came along and they said, geez, that Arjun, he's a pretty genuine guy. I don't know how many times I think my mum just locked eyes instead, saying that you're trying to make you sweat. But they said, that he looked like he was really genuine, had my best interests at heart. And I think that's been true to this day since then.
Thanks, man.
We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. Look, I mean, for those that don't know, our little elevator chat on the way here, I was referencing the movie Get Out, which was, by the way, like, I do not mean that to mum at all, but just remember that little coffee spinning scene, and she's just like sitting there looking at me. I'm answering questions. He's like, "Are you really? Do you mean this? Are you okay?" Ding ding.
I think you were taking notes too and explaining to us stuff on like a little notebook at that stage. I think it was a little Spirax, like paper document sort of stuff. Nothing special at all. And you're like giving us this paper with some extra property investment information on it. I reckon I still got that somewhere at home.
Yeah, wow.
Just somewhere.
Right, Ryan's a big hoarder, so that wouldn't surprise me.
We won't talk about this now.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, you talked about other buyers agents in that mix and journey, and then obviously going ahead with us. But talk about the option of also going solo or using a professional. What was it that said to you, "I want to work with InvestorKit instead of doing this solo"?
Yeah, me personally, I'm a pretty big research-driven person. Like, I'll research what type of light bulb I want to put in my house because it's going to look the best, be the most energy efficient. Like, I'll spend, hours looking at our insurances for our house. I think that I'm just somebody that really likes to dig down and get into the numbers and do the research. And I think in doing some of that stuff, I probably recognize that I could probably pay somebody else to do a better job than what I could. I sort of probably think about it in the same way that you probably wouldn't do a surgery on yourself. Probably could.
Yeah.
Wouldn't go that well, but you pay a surgeon to do that. I think that probably the same thing can be true for property investing. I think that as much as I know, I thought at the time, I could probably pay someone that had more experience, that had a bit more knowledge in that field to make then a more informed decision than what I could.
Lauren, similar question for you. So you'd gone at it solo. So it's not like you'd just thought in hypotheticals. You'd given it a go first, where Ryan's first purchase was with us. Your purchase first alone, and then now thinking, no, I'd like to be on the journey as well with Ryan and Arjun together on this. What was that moment for you to go doing it solo again versus doing it as a team?
I think it was just probably not having done as much research as Ryan, but also just from the start being like, where do I even start? So we'd seen, our first purchase was with my brother, was a home and land package, which from a few people we'd spoken to and brokers, they were like, oh yeah, it's a great idea. You've got all depreciation reports and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I just didn't know much more about it and didn't really know where to start to find that information. So yeah, I think in hindsight, our work with you guys has been so much smoother, easier, more successful. And overall just more positive, less stressful, which has been great.
Thank you so much on that. And look, thank you for your trust. It's never going to be something I'll take for granted, but I want to talk about some of these investments. Your first investment with us, Ryan, was in Brisbane in 2020. You'd bought that, going back now, COVID days now, let's say. You'd bought a property at $485,000, which sounds wild to be in Brisbane, a house. Today, that house is estimated to be around $1 million in value. That's 515K of capital gains, or from a percentage perspective, 106% growth in 5 years. When you first made that purchase, did you ever imagine it could perform the way it did?
No, I think I've been pretty wrapped in how it's gone over time. Like, I couldn't have imagined that the property would have effectively doubled in value in just a few years. I think that when I first started looking at those houses or looking at property briefs, I was probably a little bit picky with what I wanted and said no to a few at the start originally. And I've even gone back and looked at some of the ones that you showed me at the time, and they'd still done exceptionally well too. But my own biases back then was like, oh no, I don't like the way that kitchen sort of looks, or geez, I can't imagine myself sleeping in that size bedroom. And I think regardless of what one that I chose at the time, and the one that we did's done exceptionally well, I think that choosing to follow through on our plans and I guess back in the decisions that you were making back at the time was the right move.
What you said is really interesting. It makes me think of like how many people bring personal emotion into it. I can transparently sit here and say that I would not live in 2/3 of my own properties. Like, it's okay to like not love the feel, the look and everything. And what you'll notice about what you said then, which is very special. I didn't know that, by the way. So thank you for sharing like how many other properties you looked at that we presented, just to see if, are these guys legit or do they get lucky? Really they get lucky on this one, or do the other one's going to be okay?
I checked.
But in checking that and recognizing that the bedrooms were a bit small, or that's the thing, the main thing is when it meets our 20 points of due diligence criteria from a property specific part, because we're putting market aside, there's market research first, but when you get to property, we actually reviewed all of these due diligence, I think it was like 47 or 50 plus from memory, all these like thoughts that people said on forums or chats or online or on the internet. I think if it's on this T section or that area, it might impact this. And we back tested all the myths. And this is giving you now the deep insights of how we came to these properties that still look so different, but are still good wins. And the main thing is that once you get rid of everything that did not slow down sale campaigns, slow down and create heavy amounts of discounting, then you realize that everything else is just an opinion. Because sure, the main road proved to us that if you're on a main road, it means that it's going to take longer to sell and have a higher chance of discounting. But if you're on all those other things that we checked and it's like, that doesn't matter, it's like, why should we care then? It's not emotion, right? When it comes to buying outside of your home location, that you're living in Melbourne, and look, Brisbane's a major city, but it's still ages away, feel, touch, look, all that sort of stuff. How does that feel, and how did you get out of that kind of comfort zone to be okay with that?
I think originally it was something that was really hard for me because, funnily enough, even to this day, I still haven't seen my house face to face. I've seen lots of photos of it when my property manager sends me the inspection reports, but I think having the confidence behind the data and following through and saying, okay, this property, it's meets a lot of the criteria. It looks like there's a lot of pressure for some capital growth. It's looking like it's got a pretty good rental yield. I probably made the decision based off the numbers as opposed to what the house was or the location. I think that when I got presented with some of the reports that you guys had, and it showed what it could potentially look like for me in the 3 years' time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time, and really mapping out how that could play out for me, I think that probably took away some of my anxiety around investing away from home and saying, okay, it's, investing to try and set my financial future up. And that should happen independently of where it is that I'm most comfortable investing.
That's such a big realization. So many people think of it like, oh, it's the property, but you're realizing it's just a piece in the puzzle that's an overall portfolio plan. And that portfolio plan is not about property. It's about getting me to a goal as a couple. And then we look at this together and go, if it gets us to a goal, does it matter where it is? You know what I mean?
Very true.
But looking at the portfolio now, you've got Bundaberg, Brisbane, Melbourne, Darwin, Ballarat. Lauren, that's 5 properties across 3 states in just 5 years. And correct me if I'm wrong, age 30.
Yeah, that's right.
How does that milestone feel when you say it out loud?
Pretty crazy. I think probably when we started, we were just like, oh, let's see if we can just get, and that was independently to start with, like, oh yeah, 1, maybe 2. And then we kind of just got started and we were like, just excited to see what else we could kind of achieve. And yeah, pretty stoked to have got to where we've got to so far, which is pretty exciting.
Lauren, I want to ask you about the pace and direction. Like as in, yeah, sure, great achievement, 5 properties. But in 5 years, it's 2025 today. We kicked off the journey together in 2020. What made that pace and then also the direction of that pace like become an agreement between you two? What was it that meant like, hey, no, we're going to do this that aggressively? Because guess what? You started at COVID. Yeah. The whole world didn't know what was going to happen next. And you're like, oh, just build a 5 property portfolio in 5 years.
I think for us, we really do want to kind of set ourselves up as much as possible, as early as possible. If we can retire earlier, that would be great. Part of it is that we know that we do want to have kids, and we know that that does affect your ability to borrow and purchase properties in that sort of sense. So I guess for us, we wanted to be aggressive so that we could achieve as much as possible before we had kids and dependents affecting our borrowing capacity and things like that. So yeah, just wanted to kind of achieve as much as early as we can, and also then that gives it more time to grow. So getting in earlier is ideal, I guess.
I think you were saying to me, Loz, too, the other day about the best time to buy was yesterday or today or
the next best time's tomorrow. I think something else. There's a saying along those lines.
I was like, yeah, Loz, that sounds good. Talk about that in our interview.
Oh, look, I mean, I sort of were just talking about outside, the wealth effect. Like, I truly feel that when you have assets to your name, when you've invested early in life, just knowing, like, let's just say worst case that it hadn't performed yet, but just knowing you have them and knowing that there's the chance for them to perform over the long term and feel like it's not a race against time, It's not a like, how do I get to my financial future? Will I be okay in retirement? That can suddenly, just like answering those questions with a yes, I'll be okay in retirement, can drastically change the quality of your life for the next 30 years. It's wild, right? Because from 30 to 60, you can now basically say, we know we're going to be okay in retirement because the 5 properties, not including your super, we've mapped this out in the portfolio plan, achieves over 100K passive income. So inflation adjusted, meaning even the inflation's making the dollar worse, like we're going to be able to still reach that, not including super, right? So when you have that, no doubt, the feeling that you're able to now get, if you go into family stages and all that, you just feel that peace of mind, right? Has that given that to you?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Yeah, it helps us kind of, I think initially we're very much people that chat about kind of what's next for us. For example, when we were in Europe and we had those long train rides between cities and we're kind of talking about what we want to do, and that for us actually sparked us to reach out to you and have another strategy meeting while we were in Austria in a hostel.
I remember actually. That was the one where we mapped out specifically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like that was the moment where like I could just feel like the weight off the shoulders was like, you look at each other and you're like, we did it.
Yeah.
Pretty
So
cool.
that was a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah.
And then I think even for us, because we'd had those discussions on the trip, then after that for the future train trips, we were having these discussions. I think that definitely changed for us. So we were like, okay, we're good. We don't have to kind of keep pushing as hard as we were. I mean, it hasn't stopped us, but yeah, it's definitely reassuring for sure.
Well, keep booking train trips, guys, and the InvestorKit team will be happy with your train trips, that's for sure.
Cheap hostels in Austria, $50 a night, and we're talking about our property portfolio.
All right,
Staying in this dodgy den.
Next gift won't be a hamper, will be a train ticket. How do we get these guys back for another purchase? Train ticket. All right. Guys, looking at the journey of InvestorKit, research, strategy, negotiation, decision-making, clarity, there's a few different areas that we want to help our clients with. When it comes to these different areas, what was the biggest standout to each of you? Ryan, what are your thoughts?
I think probably the experience that you guys have in your team was probably the big standout for me. Some of the confidence in the decision making, and even once I'd then taken possession of the property and had gotten a property manager in, knowing about what things that were coming up or looking through a statement to get extra help. I think just having people that had been there before and were in the position that I want to be in, I think definitely helped me have confidence around buying the property, managing the property, just because I'd seen other people do it before, like yourself. And it's like, okay, if Arjun can do it, I can do it too. I can learn from him and try and replicate what he's done.
Yeah.
I think for me, with my first purchase, it was quite stressful. Nobody in the team, like in my team, was communicating between my broker, my conveyancer. Like nobody was communicating, and it was so stressful trying to work out what to do. So I think from having you guys involved more recently, everything just runs so smoothly. Communication is super fast and efficient, and you guys just take a lot of the pressure off us, which is, I guess, one of the perks is for us that we're probably a bit more time poor in terms of we spend a lot more time in terms of our work. It's good to have people that's their job to kind of and do that research and do that part for us, that are good at that, and that's what they do, to have that run more smoothly for us. And that's one less thing we have to stress about, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. Interrupting this message for a quick note. It's Arjun here, co-host of the Property Notes podcast, and I've got some very exciting news. If you've been loving the podcast here, if you've been tuning into the content, maybe some of our blogs and white papers, or we just took it to a whole new level, Driving the Data is now out. It's my first book, available for order on Amazon. If you'd like to grab a copy, jump on the link in the notes in Spotify or in the notes in YouTube and grab a copy now. Let's go from Brisbane to the next purchase. We went to Bundaberg next. And this one was purchased for $390,000 in 2022. Now worth around $620,000 from our estimate, which is a $230,000 gain, 59% growth in 3 years. Another special outcome there in terms of the portfolio. But this time, it's a regional market. What made you feel confident to go, we're going to go the opposite of what's out there in the internet? Everyone's saying stick in the capitals. And by the way, at $390,000, you could have bought a unit in Melbourne potentially too, right? Like you're in Melbourne, you know the area. But you're like, no, let's trust this guy again. Let's go to the other side of the country again. And let's get a bottle of rum while at it and go to Bundaberg. What's happening here that makes you go, we're confident to go regional?
I think probably the growth that we had out of our first property, that from the time that we bought it in 2020 to 2021, 2022, we'd had a bit of capital growth in that time period. So it was sort of saying to me, okay, what we've done has worked already. Why wouldn't I do that again? And, it's the do it again for me wasn't, okay, let's invest in Brisbane again. It was, let's follow the data. Let's trust in the InvestorKit team again. It helped us the first time. I'm betting it's going to help us again, which, when you read the numbers out, it definitely shows that it's been pretty successful for us. So I think that for me, the confidence around the second decision, I think, I can't remember exactly for that one, but I think it might have even been the first property that we talked about. I was like, yep, if you reckon, cool, let's get it done. Let's make it happen.
It was definitely the fastest one, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The bad news for you, though, on this one is you have no other options to check on to see if they did well. Because you're just like, oh, just go for it, just done.
Worked the first time, I'm happy.
Yeah. Now, that was the outcome for your second. I don't mean to bring up battle scars now, but Lauren, I'm going to come back to you for this one. One of your properties that you'd bought on your own was in Ballarat first, and it wasn't purchased through us, right? It hasn't moved as much since you'd purchased it. You'd purchased it for sort of 560-ish around there. It's worth between that and 600-ish around there. And it's now, 3 to 5 years later? Yeah?
Yeah, 5 years.
5 years later.
So, yeah.
Could you, reflecting on that decision, what do you feel was missing? Because you've seen a whole bunch of other decisions that have done really well. And I don't want to, I don't want to make you feel bad on that decision. But I'm just trying to reflect on that in particular.
I think it's not having kind of that sort of holistic approach. I guess when we were talking to people about purchasing initially, they were people that were more on that home and land package, and that's what they did. They didn't kind of give us the whole picture. And like I said, we just didn't know where to start. So we were like, oh yeah, that sounds good. Ballarat's growing. Yep. Perfect. So it was more just, I guess for me, just didn't know where to start. And in hindsight, probably we should have done a bit more research. But yeah, at the time I just didn't know. But in hindsight, I don't think it's necessarily been the worst purchase in my mind, because I did initially buy that with my brother. And then I bought him out a few years later. So then he bought his current house that he's living in, that he loves, and like us, that kind of facilitated that for him. And then now that's kind of come across just to our portfolio. So yeah, it has it hasn't performed as well, but it's still kind of been a stepping stone to get us to where we are. Help both us and my brother out, which has been a positive.
Yeah, I think that's the big silver lining for you, isn't it? That, it didn't just necessarily achieve the biggest capital growth, but achieved a little bit, and that little bit was enough for your brother to make a bit more money on the money that he had, and then he used that money to buy his own house, which I think for you looking back, saying that you'd be able to help your brother buy a house, pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many lessons of that can actually show you the positive impact it's had too. The first was the family dynamic to go into an investment, but then also be able to separate and do your own thing, which is also very important, because many people don't realize that if you hadn't of separated, borrowing capacity would have been impacted pretty heavily, or banks that you go with would have been limited. So that's the first big lesson as well, both in the positive of the impact for your brother, but then also the positive, how they didn't hold you two back. The second thing is, I truly believe, and whilst it's not ideal and it kind of has to happen for the biggest mindset shift, that happening and you seeing the opposite of what occurred when Ryan purchased that first one in Brisbane made you truly commit together, I feel, as let's go on this path aggressively. Let's have a team around us, and let's make sure every purchase ahead, we've got our team with us. And I feel like that was another big opener, because that then gave you momentum, and we gave you like, hey, we're going to go hard because we've seen it work. Another thing I've reflected on as well is when I was on the way here for today's session, I realized I'm so glad that you also didn't just sell it, because now it's happening. Ballarat's turning around again. It's coming back up again. It's recovering. And people don't recognize that very rarely do property markets have this bad period that lasts forever. And it's not like you couldn't buy other properties. If you can buy other properties whilst you have a poor performer, it doesn't mean you should sell it, because you can continue it. And if while you're continuing it, then all of a sudden you look around and go, hey, you're coming back around again. Wasn't that the right thing to do, rather than go transactional costs in, transactional costs out, transactional costs back in again?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's many positives that come from it to show patience in long-term wealth building. Don't sell and get emotional on things if you don't need to. Family dynamics and the importance of borrowing capacity separation, but also letting family kind of go on their own journeys and get their goals too. And then also realizing that through a little bit of pain and seeing the other side of like some really good success, you're able to choose which path you want to go on. So
yeah, I think that was something that we actually did run past you when I did buy my brother out. Being like, do we just sell it or do I buy him out? And that was I think in quite early stages, because it was something that he found a place and he wanted to move out and buy his place. So we did run that past you, and that was something that you guided us on a little bit as well.
Yeah,
which was really
the same
helpful.
things you said to us back then, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember Arjun telling this a few years ago, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming around now. We're seeing recovery. I think it had some of the fastest sales volume growth in the last 12 months. So it's like 30, 40% more transactions there. Doesn't mean it's booming yet, but it just means people are like, oh, I want to look at this, right? And even the years prior that, like the importance of timing again, like timing the Bundaberg one, timing the Brisbane one. Ballarat was actually growing quite well between 2018 and 2021. So it had some good timing in the earlier part.
Well,
right?
I think that's I think we did sign on in 2018 maybe. And I think then House and Land was 457. So it did grow in that initial stage before I brought my brother out. And then it's kind of not done much since then.
That's it.
So that growth was what then helped him be able to buy his property, and then maybe I would like continue on with Ryan. So yeah, I think it hasn't performed more recently, but
that little part
pros and cons of both. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you guys have been investing, obviously, as a couple in many of the recent purchases. How do you two make investment decisions together?
I think for us, it's just very shared goals. So we both do want to set ourselves up for the future. We know we both want to have kids. So just trying to, for us, it's what can we do to make that as easy as possible. And then ideally get us more time down the track and be able to retire earlier and spend more time with kids and grandkids maybe down the track.
It's true too. Hey, I think for us as well, like I probably said already, that I like to do a lot of research. I think still even in our investment space that I'm probably the one that does a lot of that sort of stuff. But any decision that we make or any of the research that I sort of bring up or look into, I'll always run it by Loz and say, hey, Loz, what do you think about this? Because, she's got ideas, comes from a different perspective that I wouldn't have had, and some of the decisions that we've made good ones because we made them together as a couple. I think if I'd made the decision just by myself, it might not have been as good, or maybe not as, might not have done as well. Same reason we have a team around us to support us for some of the property related decisions, because, you get a few more perspectives and you get a bit better of a outcome because of that.
I think because Ryan likes doing so much research, he's like, oh, what about this idea? What about this idea? And I think
2 a.m. at night. Arjun, what do you think about this?
I've seen a few of those messages, yeah.
I think I'm kind of like, what if I think I kind of slow him down a little bit at times. And then we kind of prioritize that together. He throws out lots of ideas and then we kind of work out what our plan is together and where to move forward, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, before becoming successful investors, after seeing all the growth and the impact and the diversity, you have to also become successful at managing money, planning, savings. So what do you two do as a couple when it comes to rules and formulas or anything around home for finance and money management?
I think for us, it both started with our parents. They were all very good at teaching us good savings habits from a young age. The importance of, I guess, work. Well, I started working younger. Ryan was more involved in sport and didn't have time.
Yeah, you started working at
14 months.
Yeah, in Subway.
Yeah, I was a sandwich artist first.
Yeah, there you go. I wouldn't be able to do that. My sandwiches would have been bad. Not good.
So yeah, just I think family really instilling some good saving habits in us early. And then more recently, I guess, do you want to elaborate on that, I guess, Ryan?
Yeah. I think probably just then now how we manage our money and how we use our offset account on our principal place of residence and how our wages get paid into our offset account, and then the money from our rental incomes get paid there, and then we divvy up the money after that so that we're trying to maximize the time that the money's spent inside of our offset. And then we'll make use of a credit card, which is good for us because we're both pretty frugal sort of people. I'm sometimes a little bit tighter than what Loz is. But it then means that by using that, that we can then keep the money in our offset for a little bit longer. We can earn Qantas points to fly on trips and go on holiday. So we sort of save a little bit of money that we would have spent otherwise. I think because we're not necessarily people that'll just go out and buy things for the sake of it. We'll buy it if we need it, or we'll do a bit of research to try and then get it on in about a month's time, a Black Friday sale, or that way we can really try and make sure that we're getting the best value for our buck, whether that's with stuff at home, with Loz doing cooking, making our own bread.
Right. Ryan's celiac and gluten-free bread is like $7.80 a loaf. So that adds up, especially with the amount he eats.
That does not fit with our property investment journey. $7.80 loaf.
Well, I mean, it's clear, like, you can see there's a correlation between when you start early in career, you start early in finance habits, you have finance habits, you're together as a couple in your decision-making, your planning, the train rides, of course, like the thinking. But then on top of that, like, it's just all of that pre-property investment has flown into property investment and now, become a part of that journey as well. So it's really special to see. Now,
I think that makes it really worth it. And it's like, I don't think we don't ever not do things. Like, we don't deliberately say, oh, we won't do that because we can't afford it, I guess. But yeah, I think it's really rewarding to sort of see it pay off. That helps. Is more motivating to kind of keep going.
Yeah. So now you're planning your sixth investment. What's the thinking behind this one now? What do you see next, or what are you thinking next around the sixth investment?
Yeah, I think it's just looking at the opportunities that exist around the country. Like, I think still as well, I've mentioned Loz said it as well, but the best time to invest is when you can afford to do so. And I think that for us, we're continually evaluating our position with our equity, with our cash flows, and I think we're getting close to, again, with the way that the rates have dropped a little bit, that we might then have some of the serviceability to buy another property again. And we'll speak a little bit closer with you and weigh up some of those numbers on how that potentially could look for us and the affordability and how that could affect our lifestyle moving forward. And that way we can weigh up some of those decisions. I think that for us, we're continually reviewing those things just because we have an active interest in money management. So then looking at a potential sixth investment property and how we might achieve that is just something that we hope to do. Whether it happens or not is another thing, but if we do, we'll be happy, and if we don't, we'll be happy because we're still in a position where we're pretty
well set up.
Set up.
Yeah. Now, last couple of questions from my side. For someone who's at the start of their journey, and maybe even if they've bought one investment property, what would you say to them if they're starting their journey or they maybe bought one investment property when it comes to building wealth?
Okay, first off.
I think even if you're not entirely sure whether you can or cannot afford something or what the strategy might be, I think it's worth having that conversation because I think if you don't necessarily know if you can or can't, it's worth having someone run those numbers for you, whether that's a broker or a buyer's agency or things like that, like yourselves. Worth having a look into, and because you might be able to afford sooner than you think. We definitely didn't think we'd be able to get to where we have. So I think that conversation is a really good place to start and see what you can do.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think for me, probably the mindset shift from early on, where I'd mentioned about what I liked in a property and what I didn't like in a property because of my own personal opinions. I think that shift in trusting the data and what that was telling us, as opposed to that a particular house had circle shaped architraves or had a funny shaped door. I think that looking at the data and having confidence in that was probably something that I'd probably recommend to either first time investors or people that are looking to continue their property journey, because you can sometimes hide things and make a property look a little bit different, but at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. Yeah.
And I think, like we said before, just because you buy a property as an investment doesn't mean you have to live in it or want to live in it. So
Yeah.
Now, my final question here for today is more a bit of a reflection. 5 properties going on to your 6th, a total portfolio of about $4.5 million, and we'll get up to $5 million once the 6th comes into the mix. Age 30, having all this momentum over the last 5 years, and now looking ahead, and looking back. It's like looking ahead, where do you feel like this takes you next? And then looking back, did you think you'd get here this soon?
I think talking about it too, it's come up a couple of times already that the properties that we've been able to buy, hearing you talk about it too gives me a little bit of goosebumps. Like, oh my God, yeah, that's something that we actually, did. We were able to achieve that, and looking forward on what that could potentially mean for our lives, our kids' lives. It's pretty special. I didn't think, looking back on when we first started investing in property, I definitely thought that we wouldn't have been in that position. I thought maybe we buy one and then, that goes up in value and, I make a bit more money, and then 10 years time I'll buy another one, to achieve all that in just 5 years. It's, we've been really fortunate.
Yeah, I think pretty similar. I think my initial impression was, or expectation was, have an investment property, buy an own occupy, and kind of that would be right. But I think getting started and seeing where we've got to is pretty exciting.
Awesome.
So,
yeah, definitely wouldn't have helped. Definitely wouldn't have happened without your help, without your team. So we appreciate it a lot.
Well, thank you, and congratulations on all the success. I'm stoked just to, be here in the journey with you two, but also just to see the success you two have had on the whole portfolio. Welcome to Sydney again, and looking forward to, hanging out for some lunch after this, but back to Darwin again this evening. So long flight.
Yeah, that's right. We only took the day off, so we flew in at 6 a.m. and then fly back tonight at midnight.
Yeah.
That's commitment for the property nerds out there watching this. That is what you call true property nerds right here. So
that's right.
Thank you so much, guys, again. Really appreciate it.
No, thanks,
Thank
Arjun.
you.
Cheers,
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. To hear more like this and to help us spread the word, don't forget to leave us a rating and follow along for our next episode.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Game over.